Hello everybody. I'd like to think of Mr. Gurdjieff as a learned being. And he talks a lot in his books about learned beings. And I think that's something we're trying to attain to be. And maybe we're looking for learned beings to learn from. Learned as in they've learned stuff and they know stuff. And it's not just knowledge gaining, they're using that knowledge to create wisdom. So they understand everything. And knowledge and wisdom go together. And if they're developing a parallel development, then that should bring us the knowledge and wisdom that we need to continue with our work. And so there's many learned beings discussed in Beelzebub's tales to his grandson. Beelzebub himself, I would class as a learned being, but through the book he talks about all different types of learned beings and how learned beings were trying to bring to people the understanding of life, the universe and everything. And sometimes that learning worked for people and people's lived in a harmonious unity for some time until someone came along and decided to change it, or think they know better and changed it so that it stopped working properly or how it should have been. Pretty much like what's happening today. We have those with egos that think that they know better than what the learned beings know. And I'd like to think that the age of Pisces that's just been finishing or coming to an end was the age of lots of learned beings coming to give us the teachings and the ancient wisdom teachings and passing it on to us. And we're going into the age of Aquarius, which is the time of we need to use all that teaching and become, we have to do it ourselves, individuals. You know, that learned teachings all there for us in all the different books and the religious teachings and religious writings and scripts that have been left for us, and all the artwork, the objective artwork that we can go and study from, and all the symbolism is all out there for us to learn from and to go forth with. And sorry, my dog's fidgeting. You'll probably hear him. He's quite loud breathing. He's probably going to snore his way through this because he is a learned being himself and doesn't need to listen. So in Life is Real Only Then When I Am, Gurdjieff is discussing about all these different types of initiates and different types of learned beings. And learned is L-E-A-R-N-E-D, the learned, those that have learned. So on page 132 of Life is Real, Gurdjieff writes, to the second category of initiates belong those who, thanks to the same factors, intentional sufferings and conscious labours, acquired a great deal of all kinds of information, and to their names was added the title learned. And there are learned people out there to go and learn from. And as I've said in other shows, when you come across them, you'll feel from their charisma and the way they're putting themselves across as to whether they are worthy of you sitting at their feet and learning from. You don't sit at their feet forever, of course, you learn from them and then move on. So we're looking out for learned beings. And Gurdjieff goes on to say in All and Everything, page 322, even before that period when Babylon flourished, those beings who became learned and were regarded by others as learned were not such beings as become and are regarded as learned everywhere in the universe. So learned people on this planet are slightly different from those that are in the universe. But then all the other beings in the universe, as Gurdjieff describes in Beelzebub's tales, are at a different level to us. They're not living in a lunatic asylum like we are. They live in a more harmonious type of realm. So continuing. So, and are regarded as learning everywhere in the universe, nor such as first became learned even on your planet, namely such beings as acquired by their conscious labours and intentional sufferings the ability to contemplate the details of all that exists from the point of view of world arising and world existence, owing chiefly to which they perfect their highest body to the corresponding gradation of the sacred measure of objective reason, in order that they might later sense as much about cosmic truths as their higher being body is perfected. But from the time of the Tikliamish civilization until now, and Beelzebub's tales, for those who haven't read it, please do go and read it, he goes through different civilizations explaining how humanity became as it is today. And Tikli-Mish is one of the civilizations. But from the time of the Tikli-Mish civilization until now, those beings, especially the contemporary ones, chiefly became learned, who learned by rote, as we're taught at school, as much as possible about every kind of vacuous information, such as old women love to relate about what was presumably said in olden times. The more of such information one of them learns by rote, information he himself has never verified, and which, moreover, he has never sensed, the more learned he is considered to be. And we do see that with the old academics, quackademics, as John Anthony West used to call them, who think they know everything, but it's all just knowledge. They're not putting wisdom to it. And also they've learned everything by rote, and they're trying to teach us by rote. It's one of the problems with the education system. We should be learning how different people learn and try and teach different children in the way that adapts to them. You have a class of 30 children, not all of them are going to pick up the whatever they're learning in the same way. People learn at different stages and at different paces, and it's the same with the work. The work will work in you at your own rate. We shouldn't try and rush it, because we need to contemplate and ponder on and let all the energies come in and work on us. But the important thing here is about the intentional suffering and conscious labors, which is something Gurdjieff strives on at us that we should be doing all the time. The conscious suffering, or being aware of, or intentional suffering, so I got it around the wrong way then, intentional suffering, taking on other people's manifestations about us, and not letting it affect us, but instead taking it on and looking at why it's happening to us, why we're feeling that way, why we're thinking that way, understanding ourselves, and that conscious suffering of going out into the world and realizing shit happens, but it's how we deal with it, and not let it get to us, not let it get us down, not let us depress us. Instead, we need to figure out how we can use it. And he says that all suffering we should use and change that energy into a more vibrant energy, take it in upon ourselves and help us to develop. And he'll go on more about this. So all and everything, actually, I'm just going to also say, and it's the same with the work. We can't learn it by rote. It's doing. We're doing the work. Okay, we've got to read the books. Is that learning by rote? In fact, when you're reading the books, you're absorbing the teaching, the wisdom that's coming off of them. And each time you read them again and again and again, then it changes the understanding inside you. As Gurdjieff said, you read his books first like a newspaper, just read through it, as you would anything. Second time you're reading as if you're reading to somebody else, because that gives you a different idea of how the work is, what the work's trying to say. Because when you're trying to tell somebody else, somebody else doesn't have to be there when you're reading. You can pretend somebody else is there when you're reading it out loud. And then the third time you read it with intention, to fathom the gist, as he says. You want to understand what it means. And it takes more than 3 readings, I think, but maybe you'll be the lucky one that gets it on the third go. 3 is the magic number after all. So page 399 of All and Everything. That usual maleficent mutual inflation, which had already been long practiced among the learned beings of new formation, and chiefly on account of which no true knowledge which has chanced to reach them ever evolves there, as it does everywhere else in the universe. And we've got to remember that Earth has got lots more laws than most other planets, so it makes it more difficult to come to us. We really need to work at it to get to it. We really want to have that need. And once you have that need and that wish, that desire to do it, it will start working for you. It will come to you. But things keep getting in the way all the time. The distractions, I've mentioned this loads in shows. We get distracted, or distractions are put in our way to try and stop us. You could say as the dark forces are trying to stop enlightened beings developing. We want to become the light. All and Everything, page 454. There were several who were not, like the majority, learned beings of new formation. And the new formation is us working on ourselves. But who, with a sincerity proceeding from their separate spiritualized parts, strove for high knowledge only with the aim of self-perfection. These beings had already been considered initiates of the first degree by those free brain beings worthy to become all the rights possessing initiates according to the renewed rules of the most saintly Ashiata Shirmash. And I've re-recorded the Ashiata Shirmash chapters. They're on my channel. There's a program where me and Josh on my channel discuss Ashiata Shirmash. Ashiata Shirmash was one of the learned beings in Beelzebub's tales who changed how humanity was looking at itself and developed groups that were like the mystery schools, I suppose, passing on the knowledge, learning the wisdom to develop themselves. So I'll just continue that paragraph. They united for the purpose of organising the club of the adherents of legomanism. This uniting of theirs had been brought about by two learned beings who were initiates of the first degree, Canil el Norcal Amor and Pythagoras Helene. And you can, obviously read about all them in the book. I'll go back to read the book. Don't sit here waiting for me to tell you everything. And a legomanism, the legomanism which transmits to the initiated let me start that again. The legomanism which transmits to the initiated men beings of the planet Earth of remote generations, these deliberations of the saintly Ashiata Shirmash under the title of the terror of the situation. The word legomanism is given to one of the means existing there of transmitting from generation to generation about certain events of long past ages, through just those free-brained beings who are thought worthy to be and who are called initiates. Legomanism is the name given to the successive transmission of information about long past events which have occurred on the planet Earth from initiates to initiates of the first kind. That is, from really meritorious beings who have themselves received their information from similar meritorious beings. And he goes on to say about legomanisms, thanks to their chief particularity, the periodic process of reciprocal destruction there almost wholly disappeared from among the ordinary beings soon after the period of Babylonian magnificence. Not only the legomanism concerning the keys to the lawful inexactitudes in the law of sevenfoldness, but there gradually also disappeared even the very notion of the universal law of the holy heptaparashionok, which in Babylon they then called the law of sevenfoldness. So when these laws be forgotten about or are not being taught, man falls back down again. Humanity starts descending back into the dark ages, the dark ways. So by keeping this kind of wisdom going and having these initiates and these learned beings there, they pass on the knowledge and the wisdom of how to live in a more harmonious way, and people live in a more contented, neighbourly, universal way. The dog's waiting to go out. Look at him. Oh, can you see him? He wants to go for a walk. So I'm going to finish this off because he's being impatient. Just a minute. We shall go. Right. Just wanted to do. Right. All and Everything, page 842. The gradual distortion and ultimate, almost total destruction of that blessing which had been created for them by their great ancestors, thanks to their conscious labours and intentional sufferings. Remember, these are the important words: conscious labours and intentional sufferings. The first cause, certain of them were formed into responsible beings with the special, organic, psychic need, an irresistible thirst to be considered as learned by beings around them similar to themselves, cunning, wiseacring. And we all want to be the cunning, sly man. We all want to go forward and learn and become learned beings ourselves, and hopefully we can help others on this path to go forward. But obviously we want to develop ourselves and become the learned beings we deserve to be. So from me and the dog, adios.